Hello everyone, Caroline here. In today's video I want to share 10 cards that I created with the Rosie Studio Take Flight collection. So let's get started with card number 1. So for card number 1 I went with a card base out of craft paper, and then I cut out 2 pieces with this Daisy May die and one with this action die, and I created kind of a layering. And I actually cut out one of those design papers that has the flowers and the gold foil on it, and I thought it might be a nice idea to just color in some of the flowers and the leaves with my Prismacolor coloring pencils. So I'm just following the design, and then I'm using my blender pen, and I'm just going over my colored in parts here and just blend all the colors nicely. And I'm surprised how nice my Prismacolor work on this paper. Now I'm using a light and a medium and a dark pink for these flowers, and then I'm just blending this all together with my blending pen. So I went with the colors that are kind of in that collection, this purpley colors, and then also this pink and coral colors. Now I'm layering my card here, and I cut this first piece out of kind of like a very glossy, almost like a photo paper, white photo paper that was a specialty cardstock. And then I'm adding my colored piece to a square of gold foil cardstock, and I'm lifting this up with foam tape on top of my white square here. And then I'm using this little sentiment, hello lovely, and I double this up with my foam tape here to give it more dimension. And then I'm figuring out where I'm going to place this, and add it with liquid glue to my card. Then I have a few flowers that I picked out from the die cuts, and I'm just adding them to the right side of my sentiment. And add this with liquid glue. There. Then I'm just adding a little bit of sparkle with my Nuvo glitter drops. These are kind of the, I think it's the Gold Coast ones. And I'm adding glossy accents to the middle of the bigger flowers. And then some little sparkles with my stickles, glitter drops. And here is my finished card. It's a small card, but I think it's lovely. Now, card number 2. So for this card, I folded back a square card base on the front, and then I cut myself layering pieces. They are a little bit smaller, like about a quarter inch smaller than my card base are. And then I'm adding this to my inside, and I also added to the inside of the left side. I'm cutting this again a little bit smaller, so it's like half the size, and then take a little bit more on the width. And here I'm adding my design paper, and I have another piece here, another design paper. It's that pink one with the little dots on it. And see, when you fold this up, you have this one covering, and you see this only when you open this, and the other one gonna be on the top. So so there's a nice contrast there. Then I cut out two pieces with my Daisy May die circles here, and I cut one in glitter paper and one is just regular cardstock. So this will be the circle where you can write your message, and then the other one goes right on top, but it's only glued to the half of the top, and I'm gonna match this up. So this will be covering the writing, so when you close this. Then I have here a bunch of die cuts and those vellum flowers, and I pulled out also some butterflies, and here I'm again adding up or double up my sentiment with foam tape to give it more dimension, and I'm figuring out how I'm gonna lay all my pieces. Then I'm adding them with liquid glue. I start out with my wreath here with the leaves, and then I'm adding flowers with foam tape, actually foam dots, and add them to the circle. So the circle that I cut out also, I do that very often. I always use like a circle in the background to give me a guide. So all my flowers and all my pieces are gonna be like easy to arrange. So, and then in the middle goes my sentiment. I'm adding this with liquid glue, and here I have a beautiful wreath with butterflies and flowers on top. Now I'm adding for this card some Nouveau Dream drops, and these are the love potions. This is this nice pink, soft pink color, and here is the finished card, and here's the open up. You can write your message, you can actually stand it up, or you just fold it up. Card number 3. So for this card I'm working with that die that I purchased in addition to the collection, and I cut out a piece of pattern paper and also cut up a frame out of foil cardstock, and I cut out my balloon, this balloon 4 times actually, with different glitter papers, and then I created inlays. So I glued on my balloon on a piece of vellum, and then I am gluing into this the pieces that fall out from the other balloons that I cut out, and so I can create like a colorful balloon. And since I'm using glitter paper, it's gonna sparkle. Then I'm pulling out this sentiment from the stem set, and first I'm adding this frame here, and I cut this out with a die from Action, and adding some powder here to make sure I'm getting a crisp image, and I stamped it in Versamark, and then I'm adding gold embossing powder to this, so it matches nicely with the frame. Now I'm heating this up, and as you can see, it looks very cohesive with the frame. Then I'm using my little card base that I created, and I use a lot of square cards. One reason is I just love the square shape, and the other reason is I love to create cards that are not have your usual size, because I want them to kind of stick out when you get them in the mail. So that's the reason why I like to use different square size cards. Now here I'm adding my balloons with foam tape and also the little clouds, and here is the finished card. Card number 4. Now for card number 4, I want to create a shaker card. I'm using one of this, I'm using this purple color, and I'm using one of my spellbinders die, and I'm cutting this out, but I leave one edge straight. And then I added some texture with a stencil from Studio Light and some gold watercolor splatters. And as a card base, I'm using kind of a scalloped edge card that I have in my staff. And then I'm creating my shaker here. I'm using one of the frames, of the chipboard frames, and I've added acetate, and now I'm adding 2 layers of foam tape to give it some height. And then I have this other piece of pattern paper, and I actually added another piece of regular paper behind it so it has more stability. And then I'm adding my little confetti that I purchased with this collection, and create my shaker element. Now you can see why I left one of the sides of this paper straight. So I wanted it to match up with my card base. Now I'm just assembling my card here. I'm adding my shaker element with glue, liquid glue, right in the middle, and I have this little fairy from the 3D sticker sheet, and I'm adding this, and I'm also adding some hearts here, and I use some glossy accent to put it on my heart, and I added on the bottom a sentiment from the die cuts and framed it with some gold foil cardstock. Card number 5. So for card number 5, I created myself a card base, a slim line card base, and I cut out a piece of pattern paper that's slightly smaller, and then I have this use this circle die from Pink Fresh Studio, and I cut myself 3 holes into a piece of white shimmer cardstock, and then I stamped out the birds that come on the stamp set, and I'm coloring them in with my just traditional watercolors, and I'm giving them really bright colors. I wanted them to look very folkloric, so I think this yellow and like really bright colors really stand out from the white cut base. So I'm using a very small brush and a various amount of water for this. The smaller the image, the smaller usually my brush, and here I'm mixing kind of this turquoise color, and if you're interested, I actually using for this card, this is literally the collection of my Jane Davenport watercolors, but instead of having them all in my small little metal boxes, I just added them to a little metal tin, so I have them all available. Now when I'm done coloring, here you see I'm adding a little shadow to that letter. Adding some detail here with my chameleon color pencils, just to deepen the color. And I do that quite often when I'm working with watercolor, that I'm adding details on top, either with my color pencils or my watercolor pencils or my Inktense pencils. I think this is a great combination. Then I'm adding with my white Posca marker some little details, and then I fussy cut them, all the birds out. Now I'm gonna assemble my card here. First I'm adding this piece of pattern paper with the clouds, and right into the middle, and I cut it slightly smaller than my other layered piece, it's about an inch smaller. And then I'm adding my piece here with the 3 circles, and I'm actually lift this up with some foam tape and add this on top. And this piece is just half an inch smaller than my card base, so I still have a little right frame. And then I'm adding my birds into the circles with some foam tape. And those 2 little birds I'm putting in the middle. Now I am using a scrap piece of dark gray cardboard, not cardboard, it's cardstock. And then I'm stamping out this sentiment from the stamp set, sending you love, and I'm just double stamping it because I'm thinking I'm gonna use it for another card in the future. So since I'm already stamping, I'm usually stamp it once or twice, so I have some sentiments for future cards. And then when I'm embossed it with my white embossing powder, I'm cutting this to size, and then I'm adding my sentiment with some foam tape to lift it up. Now I added a little black frame around my layer here, my top layer, because I thought it needs kind of a frame to hold everything in it, to get a more contrast. And then I'm adding some little squiggly lines to my already squiggly lines. And then for final touch, I'm adding some gold glitter drops. And here is my finished card. Card number 6. Now for my next card, I'm gonna go with a regular A size card, but I created this card so it opens up to the top. And then I'm using some pattern paper here, design paper. I'm using this bright yellow one, and then the one that has all the flowers and the birds. And this is the paper from the 6x6 block. Now I'm kind of want to create a layered collage, and I'm starting by cutting my pieces here with my ruler, and I'm adding some shadowing or some ink to the sides to darken this up, and I do that to all 3 pieces. And I'm using antique linen for this. It's kind of a neutral color. And then I'm using my card base, and I'm gluing this on with my liquid glue, and I'm making sure I have still a little white edge for some contrast on each side. And then I'm adding my flower birdie piece on top. So this gives me my background. Then I'm cutting away the excess here with my scissors. And then I'm using all my pieces here. I have this tag that I want to use, and I'm gluing those 2 together to make it really sturdy. and then I'm going around with my blending tool and also add the antique linen all around it. And then I'm adding a little yellow organza ribbon to my tag, and I just make a little bow here. And I'm adding this horizontally to my card. And then I'm using again one of those chipboard frames, and I'm adding a little piece of vellum to the back. And I'm adding my tag with some foam tape to lift it up. And then I'm adding my frame here, and I'm adding a little bit of foam tape to the top so it evens out with my tag. And I'm gluing the bottom part to my tag here. And then I'm starting to add my other pieces, my focal point, and I'm using this 3D sticker with the bird, and then some vellum pieces to the right and to the left. And I really like the combination of vellum and regular paper. I just love the you know, the look when it has this transparency in it. Now I'm adding my sentiment. The first part is happiness, and I'm adding that onto my frame. And then I'm adding some of the die cut pieces, so I'm running that black leaves, I'm running this down on the card, on the bottom part. And I'm also adding another flower, and making sure I'm putting a little bit of ink around the edge and add it to the bottom here. And I'm just fiddling with it and making sure I'm gluing everything properly together. Then I have this sentiment, beautiful day, and I'm framed it on a piece of gold vellum, and I'm just adding this to the top of my frame. Now I'm adding some glitter drops to give it some sparkle. And that finishes my card. Here you go. Card 7. So for this card I'm using a square, and I actually have this background piece, gray background piece, a great cardstock, and I also cut 2 design papers with this die, and I also stamped out this little sentiment. A little bird told me it's a birthday on black cardstock, and embellished it. Use white embossing powder, and also have my little bird here, and I'm adding a little hat, added a little hat. Now that background piece that you see there, I just want to quickly show you how I created this. It was kind of like a test when I did it, and it turned out very nicely. So I have this embossing powder, and it's from Michael's, I guess it's the Recollection brand, and it's called Glitz. And when you use this on white, you don't really have the full effect of this. So I actually tried this now on a darker cardstock, and it looks amazing. It has this holographic effect almost to it. So I used this on my gray cardstock here. I am pretty sure it looks amazing if you put it on a really black cardstock as well. So I'm roughing up the edge here. This is gonna be a card that has more like a mixed media look. So I cut out those 2 pieces, and I cut them in different directions. And then I'm pulling out my, this is one of my favorite stamps. It's like a collage of script, hand script, And here I'm using two matching ink colors to my that matches my design paper here, and I'm dabbing my paper onto the stamp to give it more texture. And I'm doing the same thing with the other piece, and I use other colors that match my the colors of my piece here, of my paper. And I'm doing the same thing, slightly dabbing the piece on my stamp. There. Now when I have this, I'm still think I'm bringing in this pattern from the background, and I'm using the stencil here, and this is a funky fossil stencil, and I use just a little foamy thingy here from a sponge, and I'm adding some white ink to the edge of the pattern paper, just very softly. I don't want it too obvious, just a little bit. And I'm doing the same with my other piece here, and then I dry this one piece with my heat tool, making sure it's completely dry, and then I'm pulling out from the stamp set this little heart as a little heart, and I'm marking the middle of my piece here, my pattern paper, and then I'm adding the edge of the edge of the heart to my middle, and I'm creating kind of like a pattern here with my hearts all around that middle point. And then I'm pulling out this leaf, the branch with the leaves, and I'm adding those to my hearts here. And I'm going all around, making sure I'm turning my piece, get it straight, and then I'm adding the branch into the middle of, almost like a clock, to create kind of a circle pattern. And then I'm adding my little heart again, and I'm adding this into the corners of this piece. It's almost kind of like a folkloric look, if you will. And then I'm also adding some hearts into the middle of each of the branches. For some reason I forgot one of the areas, but I will fix this later. Now when this is done, I'm bringing out my Distress Archival ink, and I'm using a little bit of black soot and go around the edges, and I'm doing this for both pieces. And this gives it kind of like this kind of mixed media look, if you will. And I'm adding now my cardstock to my card base here, and then I am adding foam tape to my first pattern paper and lift this off the background. And then I'm adding my other piece here on top. And as you can see, one line goes vertical, the other lines from the pattern paper goes horizontal for more interest. And then I have my little bird, and I put some foam dots on it, and I'm sitting it right onto the top of my hearts here. And then I'm adding my little sentiment underneath, so the bird is sitting on the sentiment. And then I'm just using my black pen and just corrected the pieces or the parts of the stamp that didn't stamp too well. For final touch, I'm adding some glossy accent to all of the little hearts. And of course nothing would be finished without my glitter drops. And here's my finished card, and here you can see how I fixed that other heart that was missing. Card 8. So here I'm using an A2 card, and I'm using a die here from Tonic. That was a designer collection, I think. But you can use any edge die that you have. And I cut one into my card front, and then I cut another piece out of pattern paper, and I'm gluing this the other way around into the inside of my card. And then I'm cutting away my excess, so now you can see close and up how that will look. And then I'm adding another piece of pattern paper to the top here. And then I have another of the chipboard frames, and I'm gluing this to a piece of gold colored vellum. Now I have these peel-offs from Love from Lizzie in my stash, and I'm adding one of the peel-offs to the front between the pattern paper and my cutaway here, and the other one I'm adding to the inside right next to my die cut. So I think that gives a little bit of structure to this whole card. Then I'm adding one of the butterflies on top of my frame here to create like an element, and I'm getting out this I really like this stamp here, go where your dreams, and I'm stamping this with matching purple color into the inside. Then I'm adding foam tape to my piece here, to my 3D piece, and I'm adding a few of those vellum flowers. Some I'm gonna lift up with some black glue dots, some to the top left and some to the right. And I love this effect, how you can still see the pattern paper through the vellum, this soft look that the vellum creates. Now I'm adding also some leaves. I thought it's a little bit too empty just with the flowers, so I'm adding leaves to the bottom, left and right, and I also gonna add another leaf to the top part behind the little frame here. And then I added a little glitter stickles and for my embellishing, and here's my finished card. Card 9. Now for this card I wanted to create kind of like a tag card. I have a bunch of die cuts here, and I'm using my Daisy Made tag die. And what I did, I used the biggest die, and then I used a card base, you can see this here, and I lay it all the way on the bottom and left the top. And this will give me my card base, and then I cut two pieces, one of glitter and one in gold from one of the action dies I have in my stash. And I have a bunch of flowers, a mix of vellum and regular die cut pieces. And I'm gluing my pattern piece and pattern paper, and I have another piece of white cardstock to give this more structure. And then I'm adding this lavender lilac color to the edge of my tag here. And then I'm using my watercolors and add some gold and some iridescent splatters. Then I'm drying this with my heat tool. And then I'm using the card base, and with a liquid glue I'm adding now my tag front to the base, match this up, and here I have a stand-up tag card. And then I'm adding some foam tape to my other pieces here, and I'm adding this on top. First my glitter, and then my gold foil, and then I'm arranging all my other stuff. So I'm using this little fairy that came in the die cuts, and I again double those up to create kind of a 3D piece. And that's what I really love, this die cut pieces, because you get them all double, so you can actually do this 3D effect with the die cut pieces because you have them all twice. Now I'm also gluing together this sentiment that I'm going to use. I just want to give it more stability. And here's my free spirit. And I framed this, share the magic sentiment on a piece of gold foil, and then I'm adding my fairy to the gold background, and I also add my sentiment free spirit on top. And then I'm arranging my flowers. I just want this to be a magical, flowery tag. It's very whimsical, very feminine, dreamy tag. So it's perfect for a little girl or for a big girl, somebody who loves pink and flowers and fairies. So and with this kind of card, you can attach it to a gift as a tag, but then what I like is you can actually use it and stand it up, because it has this card base, so you're able to stand up the card easily, and you don't have to lay it down. Sometimes if you have tags that, yeah, you can lay them down, but sometimes are to just, you know, you want to show them off, and having kind of like this kind of card base makes it easy to, you know, display them, at least for a while. So here's my last flower, and then I have this beautiful pink ribbon, and I'm adding this here to the top, and then cutting this size, and I'm adding another piece, and I'm just throwing, first I wanted to put it to the hole, but then I was like, no, I'm adding this to the other piece, through the hole, loop this through there, and then make a little bow. There you go. There is my cutting this to size, and there is my tag. And of course I have to add more sparkle to it, so I'm adding to the die cut pieces that don't have sparkle, I'm adding a little bit of sparkle with my stickles. And I'm adding also some glossy accent to the dress and to that little bow from the fairy. And here is the finished tag. there, and here you can see how you can easily stand it up and display it. Card 10. Now unfortunately I lost the recording of this card, but I will just explain quickly what I did on this card. I cut out a piece of my dark gray cardstock, a quarter of an inch less than my card base, which is A2, and I cut another piece of design paper, and then I'm using this die here. It's kind of an edge die. It looks like ripped paper, and I used two of those dies, and then I cut one in gold foil and one in another pattern paper, and I glued this on top of my other, of the one with the clouds. Then I layered up my sentiments on gold foil, and I used the die cut pieces on the top. And this is card 10. Now I'm going to show you again all my cards, and this is the first one. And here you can also see the different sizes I created, and that's what I really like to do. I like to mix it up, not always A2 cards. I know it's more expensive if you send a square card, but for me that's okay if I have to pay a little bit more for the postage. That's a little card here. And sometimes I also create my own envelopes. So when I have a card with a lot of dimension, I usually create my own envelope to make it fit. Here's this shaker card. And here's my slim line card. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope of course that you have some get some ideas from it, what you could use. You can do a lot of those things with other things that you have in your stash, other paper collections, and you know, just go with it. Do some crafting. It's so relaxing and so much fun to just you know, create some cards for loved ones. Here's that other card with the butterfly, and here's the tag. That's literally my favorite card that I created out of this. I still have so much stuff left from this collection, and I'm able to do more cards at another time. Here's this last card, and also I wanted to show you, I created this little mini album, and what I did, I created envelopes out of 6-inch square papers, and then created envelopes and created this little envelope album. On the right side you can put a photo, on the left side you can put like a little journaling card. Like here, it's a little journaling card you can put, and on the right side is space for a picture. I thought this is just a cute little album where you can put some small images. You can see different. Here I created just a little pocket with a leftover piece, and in the back I used one of the vellums, and I added a little bit of ribbon, and the front has a shaker element with vellum. Yeah, so I hope I see you in my next video. Until then, please stay well, please stay safe, and get crafty. Bye.